Good evening. My name is Phil Goddard and welcome to Bourne Environmental Review. It's December 18th, 2023. And believe it or not, this is now, I'm going to be in January, 27 years. Yeah, 27 years I've been doing this show. Not as many episodes each year as I used to do, but I like to try to get one in, and I hope to get maybe more in 2024. There's always something to talk about on Cape Cod regarding the environment. There's energy issues, solid waste issues, cleanup issues on the military base. We could go on for hours. So thank you for those viewers out there who have stuck with me over the years. I've changed a little bit in hair and where it is and the color, but I've loved coming here. I was just talking to our guest, who I'll introduce in a minute, that I've been doing shows here since 1990. And it's an absolute joy, so I want to recommend anybody who's interested in local cable TV to reach out to Bourne TV, become a producer, get involved, let your voice be heard. Okay, so my guest tonight, one is a repeat guest, Maggie Downey, the Compact Administrator from the Cape Light Compact.
Good evening.
Good evening, welcome Maggie.
Thank you, I'm excited to be here.
I can't remember when we did our show last time, but probably 10, 15 years ago, something like that. And I had Kevin
Galligan.
Kevin Galligan. We had a bill, and we were going through the bill. And Margaret Song, Energy Efficiency Strategy and Policy Manager.
Hello.
Hello, welcome, and Bourne resident.
I am happy to be so.
Yes. So we're doing this show in December. So happy holidays to everybody, and happy New Year for 2024. I thought it'd be great to kind of refresh everybody their memory about what their bill looks like in terms of where money goes, what the Cape Light Compact is, and the programs you offer, because it's a lot of stuff that you offer behind the scenes. Part of your bill goes into these audits that we can talk about, and more people are realizing that our lifestyles, they have a direct impact on climate change. And in fact, in our state with the new governor, there's a climate chief, Melissa Hoffer. And in my role with the town at ISWM, which is Integrated Solid Waste Management, in case those don't know, we were up there, we meaning several municipalities, advocating for extended producer responsibility and solid waste issues to reduce what we dispose of and extract from minerals around the world and metals. Because it's a massive climate change issue, as the other hidden one. We all know that what we do to heat our homes, run our phones, it's grown exponentially. When I was a kid, we had one TV, maybe two, a second small black and white TV. What was the energy? The houses are smaller. What was the energy consumption in a house in 1975? I mean, it's probably tripled since then, the average.
At least triple. If you say 300 kilowatt hours, now we're up to around 900 kilowatt hours.
It's got to be triple. Yeah. I mean, with probably like 4 or 5 phones in the average family, a couple of computers, TV in every room. It's crazy.
The good news is things have gotten more efficient. Energy efficiency has come so far during that time frame. So even though we've added, if we hadn't made all of these improvements and advances in technology, we would be actually in a much worse place. And that's really what we are excited to talk to you tonight about energy efficiency.
And I want to give an example of what that means in a real terms. Some people say, oh, I miss my old incandescent bulb. So I want to ask people, they may have one of those in their home still. Do you understand the source of where the energy, the fuel that powers the power plant, which generally is steam driving a turbine, driving a generator? To make that steam, you either get it from nuclear energy through fission, hopefully someday fusion, natural gas, oil, coal are the typical. Hydro, not so much here, but up in Canada, it's massively sourced from hydroelectric. Travels on the transmission lines through and then down to the local distribution to your home. So how many out there in the audience would dare to grab an incandescent bulb that's been shining for about 5 minutes with their bare hands, fully on the bulb, and try to unscrew it? What would happen?
Ouch.
You get burned. You probably get a second-degree burn.
Waste heat.
So what does that mean? That's energy. So I did a class at Cape Cod Community College, and one of the examples the teacher said. So you take a unit of energy like coal, dug out of a mine in West Virginia or a mountaintop, and all the associated consequences of the extraction and potential, what do you do with the mining wastes, and on and on we could go at that end. Then it gets on a truck, then it goes to a port, then it comes up on a ship, and used to go down to Brayton Point in Somerset, Fall River, right? That was the last one standing, a coal-fired power plant. Those plants were designed when energy was cheap. They never thought about waste heat. There's about 35% efficient. So now that unit, right off the bat, 65% of that unit of energy, call it one, is lost to just atmospheric heat, right? Just out the door. So imagine mining 1,000 tons, 650 of those tons went to heat the birds flying over in the air. And crazy, right? Then of that 35%, it gets generated, it goes on transmission lines, and there's transmission. What's the loss on a transmission line? Like 10%?
IR squared, at least.
Yeah, 10%. So now you're down to 25%. And then by the time you get down to your house, you're on an incandescent bulb. An incandescent bulb is what, 5% efficient? For every, something like that?
Close, yep.
So now you're down to 5% of the 25%. So think about that. You stack all that up, all that coal, like an entire 95% of that extraction, that unit, did not go so that you could turn that light on and leave it on all night long in your garage because you felt like you wanted to keep your dog company or something. I mean, that's the world in which we grew up I grew up in the 60s, 70s. We could just do that. And in comparison, the LED, to light the same kind of lumens or whatever the efficiency or the brightness is how much more efficient?
70 to 85%, depends on what you're replacing.
Okay. So massive difference. And that's why we've shifted to these new technologies. So we can talk about some of those in the programs that you offer. So tell us Maggie, what is Cape Light Compact and municipal aggregation?
So the Cape Light Compact is the town of Bourne. Way back machine, back in the late 1990s, the 15 towns on the Cape, working together with local elected officials, your selectmen, many of whom we were talking about earlier before the show started, county commissioners and boards of selectmen, town council, got together, and they wanted to make sure, as Massachusetts was restructuring the electric utilities industry in 1997, that cities and towns had a voice to give some clout to purchasing power. And most importantly, they wanted to make sure that the energy efficiency funds that everybody was paying into on their electric bill stayed locally, reinvested locally on programs that benefited our communities.
I want to talk about that mill on this. So tell us about that. It's a mill charge,
yes,
right? Is that what it's called?
On the power supply, it's a mill, a tenth of a cent. That's what we collect. Energy efficiency significantly larger. So anyway, the 15 towns, and then we had the 6 towns on Martha's Vineyard join and form the Cape Light Compact. So the Cape Light Compact is basically 21 towns working together to administer energy efficiency programs on Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard and to negotiate the terms and conditions of a power supply contract.
Which is different than a municipal light and power company, like Taunton Municipal Light and Power.
It's almost a virtual plant. We do not own any poles and wires.
Some cities and towns actually own a power plant, and they have they create the energy for their community. That's rare. There's only a few of those, right?
In Massachusetts, yes.
Taunton's one of them that
Braintree, Princeton.
Oh, Braintree.
There are a couple. Yep, Braintree Electric.
Where the heck is Princeton? It's like out by Peru and Athol, kind of central Mass area.
Yep.
I would have to guess, right?
Yep.
It's funny. There's so many, 351 cities and towns in Mass. Some people in Western Mass couldn't name the towns on Cape Cod, and I guarantee you people on Cape Cod could not name all the towns. And some of these towns in Western Mass, it's just funny how that goes sometimes. So it's purchasing power. It's making sure the energy efficiency dollars go to where they need to go. Was that a federal law that you had to have the energy?
No, that's a state law.
State law.
So that was created in 1997 under the Massachusetts Restructuring Act that enabled cities and towns. For many years, the 21 towns were the only towns doing negotiating a contract. We now have almost 160 of our 351 cities and towns are municipal aggregators, but we are still the only 21 towns that administer and run energy efficiency programs.
But those programs, the mill charge, that was a thousandth of a dollar?
A tenth of a cent, yep.
Okay, that goes before that. There were energy efficient programs in the 70s, right?
They were system benefit charges for many, many years.
It just wasn't overseen by.
Yes, and again, laws evolved, so that small charge changed with the passage of the 2008 Green Communities Act. So again, the legislature is constant, just like the technology, your example of lighting, incandescent versus LED.
Yeah.
Energy efficiency programs have been evolving in how they're funded, how they're administered over the 22 years. We started running energy efficiency programs in 2001. So we've been running those programs and they've evolved significantly. Huge budget growth because the technologies have changed, the law has changed. It is cheaper to save a kilowatt hour of energy than produce that energy. That was your example that you started off. So we are charged with meeting all of our supply with energy efficiency under the 2008 Green Communities Act. And that law has been subsequently changed by, in 2018 it was updated again in 2021.
21 and then 22.
2022.
So Bourne is a green community, and if you could explain, Margaret, what that is. What is the Green Communities Act, and what is the Green Community? What does it do for us in Bourne?
Sure. So the Green Communities Act did a lot of different things. One of them is what Maggie alluded to, which is that it greatly expanded energy efficiency and created this mechanism to really aggressively go after, climate goals, et cetera. But on the other side, and what you're alluding to, is the Green Communities Program, and Bourne did a wonderful job of getting all the paperwork together and moving forward with it. But it is a program that was set up. It's under the auspices of DOER, the Department of Energy Resources, and it provides a grant stream to the town to pursue energy efficient or energy reductions in either buildings or vehicles.
Municipally owned.
Municipally owned. It does require some reporting, some grant administration, et cetera, but one of the local examples is looking at the community center. So I think it's been really helpful to have both a group of volunteers that can help move this forward, and there were many of them that were involved, as well as several administrations of town staff that have actually been the ones to help push this, get the paperwork completed, signed, and move forward.
There were some conditions. There's always conditions with grants. You had to change go to the stretch code. What is that, and how does it affect buildings in towns in the town? The building permit.
So there are actually 5 criterion that you have to meet in order to become a green communities. One of them, criterion 5, is stretch code adoption. So every 3 years now, because of the Green Communities Act, every town across the board has to update to the latest base code. In order to become a green community, you have to actually go beyond that.
That's the stretch.
That's the
nothing to do with
stretch.
exercise. It's
Nope.
like
No.
stretching beyond the basics. We're not doing romper
These are all building codes that we're talking about.
building
right?
codes.
Exactly.
So there's a baseline. The bar's being raised every year for energy efficiency standards in buildings. I know I was watching This Old House. In the latest This Old House, they have to meet, they want to get certain, in Lexington, they're having to go and they did a whole calculation on the energy of the house and then they did certain things to meet that code big time.
That's
investment.
correct.
Yeah.
And then just so you know, in a more recent climate bill, we now have what is called the opt-in code, which is even beyond that.
So what would be the difference between the basic, say, the stretch code and the opt-in code? Give me an example of something that, how do you elevate from one to the next? What is an example of what you would do or ask us to do?
Sure. So, and I won't go into specifics because otherwise people get a little bit
We'd be
bored.
here for 3 hours.
Right, exactly. But for homeowners, as an example, we use something called the Home Energy Rating System, HERS. And that's basically 100 is a normal home, or what would be considered 100.
That's what they did in This Old House.
Yes.
That was the score they did in Lexington.
Oh, good.
So if you want to watch that in Lexington, I'm a big fan of This Whole I've been watching it since 1979, one of those original geeks that watched it on the PBS and Channel 2 in Boston.
Yep.
But that's what they did. They had the score. And they had it elevated. How do we get more points?
Exactly. And that is, that is a perfect example and gets people interested in the idea of HERS. But what your starting point is that 100. But as you reduce your energy usage and go towards 0, you're reducing your energy. You can even have negative scores, but it's fairly rare. Now, what the base code has is a number that is fairly attainable, looking at sort of the market conditions. The stretch code decreases that number, so it's harder to reach. And then the opt-in even goes further than that. And so you're really looking at, as some people allude to, the stretch code, and then some people joke that it's the stretchier code or, the super stretch code.
So lower scores better like in golf.
Correct.
Right, and so there's a menu of options. I think what they were talking about, they ripped up, they jackhammered the basement floor. They needed to create more space. Anyway, then they insulated underneath the concrete slab, right? And I think they put PEX tube in there. And so the base of the house was much more energy resilient, much more insulated. That got them deductions, right?
Yes, and the reason why it's become sort of a popular system is because you have trade-offs. If you really want that extra window, you can look at heating system changes, or you can look at, adding more insulation. That is really why it's become so popular, rather than sort of the prescriptive code, which has always said, thou shalt do X, Y, or Z.
I think it's a smart move because there's so many different choices, and I don't think in years past, I'm sure there's all sorts of tools to, and experts they're consulting, make living going out and doing these ratings for people and say, oh, wait, we are, here's the panoply, what do you option A, B, C, which is great. They did, I remember going back again, dating myself, I'm an eco kid growing up in the 70s, but I remember going to the homeowner show and getting a little faucet water reduction kits and, give a hoot, don't pollute, Lester the light bulb, Mass Electric.
You really are dating.
Lester the light bulb, right? But see, these things stuck with us, Google it, go to YouTube, you'll find out Lester the light bulb, give a hoot, don't pollute, so it's really, I think, excellent for contractors and homeowners to have an understanding of how they could make those choices. If you're building a new home, or if you're renovating an old home on the Cape, a lot of that going on right now. Let's just say they're upsizing substantially on the Cape from what was here in the inventory. That's, tripling the square footage probably, if not quadrupling in some areas. Okay, let's be honest about that, with these massive palladium window complexes that are 2 stories tall facing the ocean. But interestingly, I'm wondering if you compare that to a leaky house in the 1950s with no insulation in the winter, pouring out heat and heating your neighborhood. Gee, kind of be interesting to see the comparison. Maybe they're more efficient because now they've got LED, windows that react, or curtains that draw down and catch the sunlight, or solar on the roof. And so it may look like a monstrosity of a house that's using a lot of energy, but it's where the energy comes from, right? It's a difference. I want to give a shout out to someone you know very well, who is a longtime volunteer on our Energy Advisory Committee, also works with ISWIM, and a fellow Babson grad. I know Bob Schofield. Bob Schofield is our town rep to the Cape Light Compact Board.
That is correct.
Right. Probably since its inception.
Very close. Very, very close. He came on, we were just talking about this, I think it was either in the second year Bob was appointed to represent.
So let Bob know that we're doing this show, and a shout out to Bob Schofield, who goes above and beyond for the town of Bourne and the residents in so many ways. So thank Bob if you see him in the community, and and he cited to me as an example of what we've done in town is replace the traffic lights with LED lights.
Yes.
And it was like, how much? Hundreds of thousands of dollars a year? Something crazy.
The traffic lights, the street lights, those were some of the early initiatives of the Cape Light Compact across Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard. Yeah. Now you see them everywhere, but we were an early adopter. That one change, all those lights, thousands of traffic lights, multiplied by the delta in the energy consumption, where it came from, backtracking all of the source,
right? Over a year, multiplied by you just add it all up, right? And you look at the CO2 footprint, you look at the impact in extraction, and I tell people our lifestyles. I'm not a scientist, but I've been around this business a while, and I kind of pick up a few things. But all of this is photonic energy from the sun. Wind is convection with coming up Buzzards Bay. Carbon we extract. It's really old sunlight that went into vegetable and plant matter that just got there millions of years ago and crushed down. We're like extracting all that condensed energy very quickly. We get to benefit from time. But obviously there's a trade-off. Nothing's for free. All that carbon is released instantly, but we get to do stuff that our ancestors couldn't even imagine. Getting on a plane. I went to a conference last year, got on a plane at Logan, closed my eyes and woke up in San Diego. I mean, just think about that. Just going across the Rockies, it's just astounding that so it's really critical we be aware of that. So we're an aggregator. The towns are working well together. All of the towns are working well together now. I bought into the original green option.
Yes.
When it came out and had the sticker, that goes back to like 96.
CLC Green, CLC Local Green. Yes.
Look, it's changed the name, but whatever it was. What was it called?
We were Cape Light Compact Green,
Yeah.
and we've evolved to CLC Local Green.
Was it 2006, something like that?
That was the first.
Yeah, so I was in that. So am I automatically enrolled in the new one that's called
CLC Green, CLC Local Green? You'd be automatically enrolled unless you affirmatively opted
So
out.
I opted in and never opting out. Explain what that is. Where do you get the power? Is it different from another option, or is everybody on that? I thought I heard that everybody has it now, sort of by default.
The Cape Light Compact's power supply, we just announced our new rates. They're in place from December through July. It's rate for supply. It's only a portion of your electric bill. It's 15.5 cents. We're about almost 2 cents lower than Eversource as the distribution company. So we've been able to deliver
Wow.
lower rates for several years now, which we're really happy about because we're again saving customers money on their electric bill. And then when you couple
Is this the green option, or
this is just our basics. I'm
basic, okay,
I'm
got
getting
it,
there.
okay.
So where does our energy come from? So I don't want to get too geeky either, but there is a fiscal path of electrons, and then there is the contractual path.
it's all
We
fungible
negotiate
electrons?
contracts. Where do your electrons come from? They're coming from, they travel the least path of least resistance. They're coming from Canal Electric. Very soon they're going to be coming from Vineyard Wind 1 as they come on
I want
to
to
Cape
ask you
Cod.
about that, some other
So
stuff, yes.
you're getting system power. But the compact negotiated for our basic plan, our basic rate, at 15.5 cents, it is 100%, we call it 100% renewable because we take everybody's electricity and we match the load with renewable energy certificates. But they are not class 1. That's very green, get a little geeky. These renewable energy certificates are from central the United States. They are from renewable plants that were in commission prior to 1997 when the Restructuring Act changed and renewable energy credits became a requirement.
Talking about wind?
They are wind.
Like West Texas?
West Texas, Central Iowa, Illinois. So they're
I've
not
been
class
out there
1
and I've
RECs.
seen them. There
So
are
those we are
thousands of them.
buying, and then we retire them. CLC Local Green has class 1 RECs from the New England area. And the reason there's a difference between class 1 RECs and older RECs because it is literally, when you build a renewable energy, whether it's wind turbine, solar, you have two things that you're selling. You can sell your electrons, and then they created attributes, renewable energy certificates, to encourage and help foster the development of renewables. So CLC Local Green are from plants that have been built after 1997, and they are in New England. They are the solar farms that you see on our landfills. They are the wind turbines at the Maritime Academy. They are solar RECs that we purchase from residential customers, and then we match a customer's load, your load, with those class
So
1
on that,
RECs.
on the solar question, because I had this question. I have a great southern exposure, no trees. So let's just say I have X load demand, but I generate X plus with the solar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, rather than, will I get money back? In other words, I can only take so much credit on my bill. I could have credits for the next 20 years if I generate substantially more, but will I get a check? Or can I understand you can donate that electricity to nonprofits, or will I get a check? How does it work?
So for a residential house that has solar on the roof behind the meter,
Yeah.
so you're producing electricity.
Twice as much as I need, for example.
And you have extra.
Yeah.
You have extra energy.
100% extra.
So you can do one of two things. You can allocate that to your neighbor Margaret Song in Bourne, and you can develop a financial arrangement so that.
So that is legal. That's not shady.
Yes, no, that's not shady.
No, I'm seriously asking
is
this
a
question.
schedule.
So I say, I'll sell it to you for 5 cents a kilowatt hour, and you cut me a check every month.
There is
And
a
what do I
schedule.
tell the utility that?
There's a Schedule Z that you would fill out with Eversource, and you need to have that person's electric account, and those
And they'll
extra
credit her
credits
account.
will go on that account.
So that is true.
That is an option.
And then it's income to me, or is it a,
Well, that's between you and whoever you're
But do I-
allocating your.
well, that's the shady part. So do I have to report that as income?
I'm definitely not going to weigh in on that because
Okay.
I'm not a tax accountant.
All right.
But you can allocate your credits
To a nonprofit?
It
I
has
thought I
to
heard-
be residential to residential. You can't do a nonprofit.
Oh, I thought I heard
because that's a
MVY
commercial-
Radio asking, like, you can donate your power, because of my favorite radio station locally. But in terms of money, what will the electric utility Eversource give me, cash?
You'll get a net metering credit, which is the sum
credit,
of
yeah.
transmission, distribution. It's their basic service rate, transmission, distribution, and their basic service. The sum of those three things is your net metering credit.
Right. But if I generate way more, I could be out 10 years and have credits and get a zero
I want to
bill.
just comment on that because more isn't better. When you're if you went as a resident, as a homeowner, when you're thinking about putting on solar,
Yes.
it's not necessarily in your interest to, unless you're going to share, like with a neighbor.
So it's an upfront cost.
Upfront cost. Your panels have an impact producing them, so you're oversizing.
Now you get into my world because there's a huge lack of infrastructure to recycle the panels.
Yes.
And they're filled. And a friend of mine actually wants to export them overseas because they still have some life in them to use to offset diesel fuel for running generators in Africa, for example.
in a third world country.
And then all the heavy metals and rare earth metals and things that come.
So you really want to size that panel
So that's
to
interesting
your
to
load.
know. So you could just, like, I only need 10 kW. So maybe I want to have it just match my load, or maybe 10% extra. So I'm not creating this massive amount of extra electricity I've got to figure out what to do with, and calling up all my friends and family and trying to, hey, you want to buy my power? So you're not going to get money back from the Eversource.
No, gosh, this has been a long time since I've dealt with these, but there are some larger scale facilities, municipal facilities, when they did their solar, where they did have a cash out option. You either had to fill out a Schedule Z, and you were going to allocate from your landfill solar farm to every municipal account.
Schedule Z is not a Mass Department of Revenue form or an IRS
Nope,
form.
that is
It's a utility form. Just to clarify, that's why I'm asking this. So please talk to your certified public accountant licensed to practice in Massachusetts from these tax questions. Right. So we
There's
covered
also-
ourselves on that one. But the Schedule Z refers to telling Eversource whose
Yes.
bill to credit.
Correct.
Margaret's bill. Okay, this is how I do it. Okay,
Correct.
got it.
And you also since you didn't, I can tell you that there is a federal tax credit of 30% of the total cost of the system for those that are installing solar, and that is good till 2033. So there's lots of opportunity for some tax benefits for a homeowner that wants to pursue solar.
You say for all of 2023?
33.
33.
33.
Okay.
Goes out another 10
You
years.
got 2 weeks. Go for it.
10 years at 33, 2033, you'll get a 30% tax credit from your federal taxes. And
Tax
on the,
credit is a huge difference. So a write-off or deduction lowers the exposure of your adjustable gross income, and then you're taxed at the rate that applies to. But a credit is you do all of that. Say your tax bill is $10,000, you get a $5,000 credit. It's just $5,000 off your bill. You don't have to do percentage.
Yeah.
That's a really big.
very
incentive.
exciting, a great opportunity for homeowners. There's also a Massachusetts tax credit. I think it's about only $1,000, or I have it in my notes. I can look later, but it's much smaller.
So those kind of trade-offs and analyses, do you help homeowners with this sort of discussion? I know.
We just like you invited us to come to talk to you tonight. We have some slides, presentation. We've spoken at last one was Eastham Library, talked about solar, and we wasn't me, Mariel went out, someone who works with us, and gave a presentation on solar energy, the benefits, what is out there. There's also, if you're income eligible or moderate income, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has just applied for a significant grant from the EPA under the IRA, federal IRA
Infrastructure,
Inflation Reduction Act.
Inflation Reduction Act.
So they will be sometime in 2024 rolling out a zero interest loan program
This is
for
different.
low and moderate
This is
income.
different than the Cape and Vineyard Electric offering.
Yes. Yep.
So that's another program.
That's something else.
What's that program?
So thanks, Phil. You just mentioned CVEO, we call it, which is the Cape and Vineyard Electrification Offering. It's a pilot project where we are taking 100 homes on the Cape and Vineyard that are deed restricted for affordability. So think about a Habitat for Humanity home,
Housing Assistance Corporation.
HAC home, or a town of Bourne. These are single-family homes that heat with either oil, propane, or the old electric resistance, and we are fully decarbonizing, meaning removing the fossil fuel out of the home, installing heat pumps, pairing that heat pump with a PV panel so that we're overall reducing the total energy burden.
Photovoltaic or panel.
PV panel, solar, heat pumps, and
A heat pump. What is a heat pump?
a heat pump is it's a heating system. It is a highly efficient form of heating.
But tell the science about it.
I'm going to turn that one over to
Where-
Margaret.
it's
taking
it's
cold
magic.
air. It's
Where does it
magic.
get the energy?
You take out cold air, it runs through your condenser, and it turns into warm air, and it heats your house. I have them. I've had them since 2017.
It's kind of extracting differences in
Air from
temperature
outside, yes,
and
and
taking
taking advantage of
You only
that.
need a very small, and then that's a less sophisticated or infrastructure intensive version
Refrigerator,
of
right?
the
The
geothermal.
opposite of it.
Right, geothermal, you should drill, and I'll point out this old house, they're doing geothermal. They went down like 500 feet into the ground where the temperature is constant. And now you want to cool, you run liquid down, either it's a closed loop, ethylene glycol, or water-based, you're pumping that down, and if you're pulling heat out, now you're dumping the heat and cooling, or vice versa. If it's 20 degrees out, but it's 50 degrees down there, you can actually pull heat out of that 30-degree delta, right? Similar concept, but not as intense, right?
No drilling involved.
No drilling
drilling
involved.
involved.
And it's just like a fan outside your house. So that's an example of the technology now. You match that with, I can imagine the next generation of these devices is going to have AI associated with them, and smart, pulling in information from the web and weather patterns and adjusting the motors and when they do what and so forth and so on. It's just incredible, the efficiency.
Heat pumps have become, in the last 10 years, more and more efficient, advanced, capable of working in cold climate.
Right.
When they first were introduced, they only recommended using them in temperatures down into like the low 40s. Now they're highly efficient.
And that would
in the New
replace
England
your
area.
traditional oil-fired or natural gas-fired boiler.
Or propane for us. But propane, our focus is really on propane, oil, and old electric resistance heat because it's more efficient and it will cost you less. Natural gas is, yes, you'll be getting rid of a fossil fuel, but you will be increasing your overall energy burden at this current point in time.
And just talking about natural gas for a minute, I remember not so long ago, we were closing down coal-fired plants. Again, Brayton Point, Salem, the Dirty Five, the Filthy Five, I think was the moniker. And we were getting natural gas, the subject of which we could go in for many hours of where it came from, technology and fracking, and that has its detractors and rightfully so. A lot of exploration went out without a lot of regulations, and hopefully that's going to change. But it made natural gas very cheap. I know that it, just so happened to be a classmate I went to the school. Her husband was on the board of Santee Cooper down in Georgia, and they were building the first nuclear power plant since Love Canal. 3 Mile Island. This was major, billions of dollars, Savannah. And they couldn't, they shut it down because the natural gas prices were so cheap and we have natural gas here at Canal Electric, but compared to number 6 bunker oil in the barges and the spills, and there were all sorts of incentives to go to natural gas. I got rid of my oil. I was going through 1,000 gallons of oil a year. Whew. It's a lot, and I did insulate the house, but my energy and price that went down, it was like 2/3 went down when that happened, kind of, cooking and all that. So, it is a fossil fuel. It's the anthropogenic, which is that sort of old, dense energy where like taking advantage of 1 million years of sunlight in a week, versus biogenic, which for those out there, that means something that is very new and you're pulling carbon from recent, like trees, for example. A tree's less than 100 years old. It's pulled carbon out. You're releasing that carbon within a very, a human lifespan, roughly. That's a big difference. But that's an example. I like to say it's incrementalism. The real world is incrementalism. Would you agree with that statement? We're not going to go and say, yeah, we're going to be completely decarbonized in your homes. We're going to tell people that just put in a gas stove down in Hyannis and Osterville. They're going to rip all the gas appliances out. You got to go electric next week, right? Incrementalism is
you're not
the reality.
Yes, you are correct. I agree with you 100%. This is a journey. It's not going to be, and there's no silver bullet here. I think the focus is what I just said. In Massachusetts wants to by 2050, electrify 1 million homes.
That's the climate action plan?
That's the climate action plan. And what we want to focus on first, as I said, are those that heat with oil, propane, and electric resistance, because switching to cold climate heat pumps will reduce their energy burden and be better, less GHG, greenhouse gas emissions. So that's really where the conversation is focused at. Now, there are always going to be people who have the financial ability, and the desire to replace their natural gas because
it's their early adopters. Like recycling 30 years ago, it usually was the affluent suburban communities that were pushing recycling in the 90s, late 80s, because they were affluent, and and some of them, they were fretting about, what do I do with the little twizzly tie piece of metal on my loaf of bread? We're not recycling. Oh my God! And meanwhile, people, it gets a little kind of crazy, in comparison. But then now we're starting to talk about upgrading, the large swath of the population. So you may have natural gas, like myself. I'll use an example. It's only 10 years old, 12 years old. I'm not going to rip all that stuff out. That'd be, let's do the carbon footprint of ripping out all the copper and the equipment and not using it through its life cycle. And then, I could come up with a carbon footprint that replacing with other equipment that has an embedded cost to create and transport. And we're getting in the weeds here. But, so I'm going to use that system. And then when I replace it, I'll probably have a heat pump. I'll have other lighting in there, right? So every time there's an opportunity, there was an incentive to go to natural gas, and they came around. It was a big deal. The administration at that time was like, go natural gas, get rid of your oil heat, the dirty oil heat. And the oil heat folks were like, oh, we're better than we used to be. But I can tell you, I like the natural gas. I never have to worry about calling, the truck. And I've been out there in February in the winter, hoping they get, the guy dragging the hose across the...
So there's two things. The vineyard has no natural gas.
Right.
The Outer Cape has no natural gas. And that is really, for us, the Cape Light Compact, that is what we're focusing on for replacement of heating systems with high incentives.
Good.
And starting in 2024, if you're are moderate income or low income eligible, Margaret, what are those dollar amounts again?
So income eligible is for a family of 4, as illustrative, is $87,000. So if you are at that level or below, there are a large suite of programs that are available to you, including fuel assistance, which is a pretty good thing, and then discount rates for your gas and electric bills. It's about, 30%, I think?
No,
it's 40%. So that can be very significant. and then I think it was $116,000 for a family of four for our moderate income programs, which I think Maggie was alluding to the fact that we have some enhanced incentives there for heating systems and
Exactly. So starting next month, 2024, if you fall within those income ranges, if you're in the 87,000 below family of four, you can replace your oil, propane, electric resistance with a higher efficiency heat pump at no cost to you. The program pays for that. And if you're in
No cost.
it should say that. No cost to the customer who's participating.
Right. No, that's what I meant.
These are our dollars.
Are
We
there
fund these programs, so it's really, we are paying for
Which
our own.
lowers the impact, but also it's getting to where you want to go. Because let's face it, without that, low-income folks cannot afford to do this.
Correct.
Correct.
Because the upfront infrastructure costs, insulate your house to our whatever. Well, okay, that's going to be $10,000.
Correct. And these programs,
Ridiculous.
Cape Light Compact's energy efficiency programs, will pay 100% of the cost for the air sealing, the insulation, the replacement of the heating system, as well as any barriers like knob and tube wiring or some vermiculite that might be there. So there is a suite of services.
So if you're
for
not
the
low income,
income-eligible.
are there low interest loans or are there
So let me gradually get there. So
Okay.
then after the low income, as Margaret mentioned, that family of four earning $116,000, starting in 2024, they will be offered a similar suite of services, 100% coverage for insulation, a knob and tube, vermiculite, all of those things that would be barriers to insulating, and 100% of the cost with income verification for replacing that heating system with a high efficiency heat pump. So that's a significant shift. And that's not only on Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, but that'll be statewide throughout the Commonwealth for income eligible and moderate income, 100% of the cost of a heat pump for those, and you just income verify. The Cape Light Compact income verifies in-house. So we're hoping to see those that are ready to transition.
I don't think that message is getting out there.
no, it's not, and that's why
That's why
we're hoping you can help us.
CapeLightCompact.org. But, I love Bourne TV. Jen knows. It has a website. Even Facebook is for boomers, right? I mean, we're dating ourselves. It's like if you're not on TikTok or Instagram, it's not Instagram, it's Instagram, right? Whatever, the short little clips. Do you have someone that you could tap into AmeriCorps that could help you with some messaging on that so that, that generation could then talk to their parents? Did you know, Bob, there's this program? There's traditional newspapers and what we're doing here. I think we're going to reach some people. Or through the town's websites. You should have like a little, does every town have a Cape Light Compact pull-down menu on their website?
It's been a long time since I looked, and I will say we're very excited. We just hired a full-time communications and marketing coordinator.
So
at the
this
Cape
is what
Light
I'm talking
Compact.
about.
And some of the things that he's working on is updating our website, making sure that we're talking to every board of selectmen that they're aware of the programs that are out there and re-engaging.
So here's my idea I want credit for it if
and
it gets done.
reinvigorating.
Every town on the Cape is part of this.
Yes.
So every town should have the same branded link as part of this program, Cape Light Compact link on their website that's branded now with your logo that then links for that town to all these programs that no matter where they go, that the towns can point to for all their investment in this program. If it's not on their website, then and nobody knows, then nobody's
It's
going
out
to
of
do
sight,
it.
out of mind. And that's, we are very grateful for having us here tonight,
Yeah.
where we see our shining face when I come to
Yeah.
speak to the Board of Selectmen in Bourne.
Right. There's so much
but
to know.
It's a lot to know, and every town has an energy and/or a climate committee. You talked about the town of Bourne's. We have good relations with them, and it's always about improving those things. How do we work better together, collaboratively, to get the word out?
The library should all have a Cape Light Compact display. Every website should have it branded on there. There should be, on and on we're talking about this. So these are ideas for your marketing. That's my major, by the way. So to get out there, because we need to find the new distribution channels for the information, which are completely different for young couples in their 30s with a child, that may have income limited. But what about those that are not income limited? Because we want them to do this too. Are there incentives or other discounts or low interest loan? There are.
Yeah, so even if you are the richest person on Cape Cod, one of the things that I love is that everybody gets free air sealing. My mom and dad love it. They're not on the Cape, but when we sealed up the homes, which is basically like caulking, in the corners of your home, etc., my mom was so excited because there's less spider webs. Because basically they are attracted to where the drafts are. They're going to come in where the drafts are. And what we are looking to do is to reduce those drafts. The good news, and I know some people are nervous about this, is, sick house syndrome, right? Which is getting the home to be too tight.
Yeah.
One of the requirements.
Air changeover.
Exactly. And one of the requirements that we have as part of our program is that we have blower door tests that we require so that we are following some standards that are out there for home health and safety so that you do have the proper number of air changes so that, on that worst case scenario where the stove is going, you have full occupancy in your home, you've got everything going on. What we don't want is to have an unsafe situation. So that's one thing that we do offer is the home energy assessments. We will see, what sort of things we can do in your home. There's no obligation after that home energy assessment.
So you're talking about the Mass Save program.
Yes.
We are a part of Mass Save.
Okay, didn't
yes.
used to be part of Mass Save, or it was Rise Energy.
Here, I'm going to push your marketing. Mass Save is simply our brand. Because the Cape Light Compact works with the investor-owned utilities like Eversource and National Grid and Liberty and Unitil, we were all offering same programs, but we were all using our own logos. And I don't remember when we created Mass Save. How many years ago?
Well, Mass Save was actually from the 1980s.
Way back. Way back.
And then, yeah.
But the Cape, I remember because I had this done, and it was Rise Energy.
That's a vendor. That's our
the vendor, right? But it wasn't called Mass Save. It was called our own special thing.
Well, we used to call it the Cape Light Compact's home.
Right.
Home
Yeah,
energy
Well, there you go.
assessment.
So
yeah.
now it's called Mass Save. Everybody's calling it Mass Save.
Yes.
Yes,
Just
we
for
rebranded back with
That's
a
a
name.
smart move
that-
because
yeah.
now they were talking about this at one of the articles I was doing research on as part of the Climate Action Plan at the state level. They talked about that the whole Mass Save needs to be reformulated and updated to be, more modern and look to maybe Vermont for something, even though they have their own little world in Vermont, which that's fine. But the whole Mass Save analysis and the program needs to be reformulated or reformed, or that was the gist of the article. Mass Save must be reformed to meet net zero goals by 2050 and decarbonization per the climate chief Hoffer. So it's taking this program, and what this is that small charge in your bill that goes into all these programs, and you call up Cape Light Compact. What's the number?
1-800-797-6699.
797?
6699.
Okay, 508, right? 508. So, and then you'll have a vendor like Rise Energy or whoever it is now come to your home. I know they insulated my chimney chase in and around the windows in the wells
Yep.
at the foundation. They did the blower test, some other things. It was free or very little cost for some things.
Yep.
Put some more bat insulation down. So this is the stuff you're talking about.
Yeah, so the insulation that you're talking about is at 75% that is covered by the Cape Light Compact. And then I think one of the things you were alluding to earlier was that for those that qualify for a bank loan and need it, we do have what's called a heat loan. It's not just for heat. The name is a little bit of a misnomer. But it's up to $25,000 for the regular loan and then up to $50,000 for kind of our supersized loan. It's 0% and up to 7 years. And it's a great deal.
Money.
Well, it's a real
0% 's free
incentive.
money.
It is a real incentive. And in this day and age, to have that kind of cash
You can't
flow.
do arbitrage. I'm sure there's a clause in there. You can't take the 50,000 and put it in a CED at 4.
Yeah, no, you cannot
That's
do
called
that.
arbitrage,
Yeah.
folks. Don't do that.
No, don't do that.
There's a clause in there.
Yes.
Don't you?
They are for approved energy efficiency.
Of course.
And
You have to
you go
You got to
through
bring the
bank,
receipts, as they say.
You work with the Cape Light Compact.
So does that involve, again, what I was getting at earlier with the low income and moderate income getting free heat pumps? I'm not qualified, let's say the family isn't qualified, can they buy a heat pump at a discount? Or are there incentives from Home Depot?
There are incentives.
Okay.
So say you want to
Write-offs, or not
right,
a credit, but
there are incentives. Say you want to do a whole home replacement, and
Yeah.
you're not in any of the income
yeah,
categories.
I'm in Osterville and I got a 30,000 square foot house. I want to
and
go
you're
heat
going to
pumps.
put in a $40,000 heat pump for your very large home.
Yeah.
You would be eligible for a $10,000 whole home incentive.
Meaning incentive by whom? Where was it applied?
You have to buy. We have a list. It's called an HPIN heating list. You have to work with the contractor that's been certified. It's on our website. There are several hundreds of
So
contractors.
$10,000 comes from you in a check?
It comes from it comes from our vendor who runs the program for us.
That's what I want to know. So it's not a credit on your taxes.
Nope.
It's not a deduction.
Correct.
It's cash back.
Yes.
So it's significant $10,000. Okay, that's an incentive, folks. So that helps me understand that when I get around to 15 years from now, my system's now 30 years old. I'm going to upgrade the hot water heater, everything. And I looked at the instant hot water, and those have improved a lot. It was a venting issue for me where I would put which is a problem for some homeowners and where aesthetics and also neighbors and things. So I didn't go with that one, but my mother did. I would be able to look at a program like this and say, look, I got to spend 20 grand, 15 grand, to a whole system upgrade, to a heat pump, but whatever the incentive is, I may be able to get.
Potentially, and there could be a whole new technology. And you're talking 10, 15 years. Yeah. Who knows what's going to happen? But that's what these programs do. And you mentioned something about the climate plan. One of the things that the Cape Light Compact has been advocating for is, and this report that's being researched and analyzed, is to make sure that whatever happens, that our 21 towns retain local control over the money that you and I and everybody watching pays in every month.
This was the big revelation in '97.
bill.
I think we probably talked around that time or early 2000s about this issue that the dollars are going up, but we weren't controlling them. And there was a lot of stuff in the '90s that happened. Cape Cod Commission was 1990. The land bank issue, was formed. The Community Preservation Act money. It was started with the land bank on the Cape, and then it became that. This legislation. These were all like '90s initiatives that we kind of take for granted now, but they're 25 years old. And it's exciting, and they need to be upgraded and constantly
That's right.
refreshed. And you mentioned sizing your solar. It made me think that maybe I could cover my entire roof, but maybe I don't need to. Or maybe I want to go an EV and have a charging station. So I saw something on your website about talk about what you could do for me if I wanted to put a charging station or battery backup and charging station.
So I'll talk about the batteries. So if you want to, if you're interested in installing, maybe you have solar on your house now and you'd like to install a battery. That is, a battery is eligible for financing under the heat loan. So you can take that. Batteries they're now more expensive than they were a couple of years ago. They're $10,000 plus. You can purchase your battery through the heat loan through a zero interest.
This is a whole home backup system.
It depends.
Or at least whatever you hook up to it, size to
right,
it.
and
Like your
we
heating,
have great. Usually, those that are installing the batteries right now are solar installers, and we have some great local solar installers on the Cape, on the Vineyard, and that would be my first recommendation if you're interested. A lot of people like to do their
So
own.
that's loan rates that are lower, or the buyback,
The batteries are eligible for financing under the heat.
Financing, like really low, like 0% or
zero interest heat loan.
Okay, that's one. In EV charging stations, if I wanted to put a solar array that matches my house needs plus an EV, do you have some offers on the EV charging station?
So we don't have any rebates for the EV charging stations, but Eversource does control those, and particularly, the town actually was looking at some of the make-ready programs for the town facilities, but anything for EV charging stations would go through Eversource.
So I got to get this out of my head because we have about 4 minutes left.
Oh.
It goes by fast,
Yes,
an
it
hour.
does.
No, it never have a problem. I've got many more. I can go for another 2 hours with you guys. Realtors, home builders, town websites. These are places, distribution channels for your message. Third, the card stock at the Chamber of Commerce. I don't know, many things. Have a big event at the Rotary in the summer. I mean, I don't know that people know a tenth of what we're talking about here from the average homeowner. They would be very surprised, even for, well, I'm not low income, doesn't count. I don't count. That's for, no, check it out, folks. In the few minutes left, I want to ask you some bigger questions. Explain what's going on with the infrastructure with this kilovolt. We're upgrading our whole infrastructure on the Cape to accept the gigawatts, hopefully gigawatts, but hundreds of megawatts of power from wind, right?
Yes. So again, that is not in our bailiwick.
No,
that
but
is Eversource.
Part of your world.
That is the Eversource Capital Improvement Plan. The Cape Cod, this is in front of the Department of Public Utilities, and the Cape Light Compact actually commented on the Eversource Capital Improvement Plan and was advocating for approval and inclusion in their CI capital improvement plan so they can start to make the infrastructure upgrades that we need to make sure that when you want to put on solar and I want to put on solar, the grid can
So this is good news that our grid, our backbone, the spine of the Cape is going to be able to handle the loads from the wind, which are hundreds of megawatts that are now going to come through the Cape, not from Pilgrim Nuclear, but also to be able to go out into the various
So
towns.
those upgrades are all paid for
Yeah.
by the offshore wind developers.
Sure.
Like everything that
And
you
that-
see, the
that's great.
cable, the landings.
But this is
and-
going to make the whole Cape better, more resilient, upgrade it, and I'm sure there's
Yes.
many other.
Yep, and there are more cable, I think it's
We
the
got
fourth or the
about
fifth
2 minutes
cable
left.
going to the big-
CapeLightCompact.org. Maggie Downey, the Compact Administrator. Margaret Song, Energy Efficiency Strategy Policy Manager. Message needs to get out there. Share this with your friends. It's going to be on the website, bournetv.org. .com, and I'll be on the internet forever. So share this with your friends. Get involved. Check it out. You may be surprised at what you could receive or take advantage of. I think we've shown that here tonight. So happy holidays to both of you.
Thank you, and
for
you too.
wearing a festive outfit with the sparkling stars and the red. And I'm boring, Margaret and Maggie, thank you. Have a wonderful, happy holiday season and a wonderful 2024. We'll see you next year.